In Luke's parable, Lazarus is seen as being extremely poor. It's not the Lazarus who was the brother of Martha and Mary, who was raised from the dead by the Lord. This is a different one. It's a story that Jesus tells, how Lazarus just sits at the gate of the rich man. And the rich man doesn't have a name in the gospel story, but by tradition he is called Dives, D-I-V-E-S, a Latin word that means riches. Both die, and the story is that Lazarus is taken to the bosom of Abraham, and Dives goes to some place of torment. And he can see far off Abraham, and he asks Abraham to send Lazarus to me. Let him dip his finger in some water so I might help my parched tongue. And Abraham refuses. He refuses and says, there's a chasm here and one can't come to the other. So then Lazarus says, well, send them to my brothers, my 5 brothers, so that they won't end up where I am. And Abraham says, well, they have Moses and they have the prophets. Let them listen to them. And he counters, no, but if someone were to come back from the dead, then they would listen. It's important to recall 2 things. One is that this gospel is probably being written around 80 AD. And the point that Luke wants to make is that one has already come back from the dead, Jesus. And still the people have not repented. And then secondly, it's important to note that Dives is not condemned for being rich. Richness is not the issue here. What's the problem is that Dives paid no attention to the poor. He wasn't sensitive, probably didn't even see this man who sat at his gate every day. Dives didn't kick him when he passed by. He didn't yell obscenities at him. The sin for which the rich man has suffered is that he ignored Lazarus. In the end, it's a question of not how much you have, but how much you care. At times, I would be readily admitting that the parables sometimes are difficult to understand. But the point of this one is clear. Dives and Lazarus give us a very clear lesson. Then we need to look at ourselves, and probably no one is as poor as Lazarus here. And maybe there's not even a person who has the wealth of Dives. But we have to be aware of the fact that we can suffer from the same thing as Dives. We can ignore those who are in need of our support. That's true at government levels at times. It's true as individuals as well. Sometimes as a society, either as a group or as individual persons, sometimes it seems we just don't care. And that's not simply a political issue, it's really a gospel imperative. Whatever you do to the least ones, you do unto me. Lazarus is present in the obvious person of the homeless and the destitute, but he's also present in the person that we pass by with our indifference, maybe at school or at work or in our social settings. He's present in the person in our neighborhood who's just lonely. Each of us can identify with Dives to one degree or another. While we certainly have people here on the Cape that are in need, and the work of our St. Vincent de Paul Society attests to that on a regular basis, with the food pantry and helping people with their rent and so on and so forth. But speaking on a larger framework, none of the people here on the Cape really could say that they are really poor like some of those in the third countries. Just look at the pictures and the images of the refugee camps in Haiti. Can you imagine living like that? Or talk to some of the people here at Christ the King who have gone to Honduras. It's not as bad as Haiti, but it is a real poverty level that we don't have here in our society. Over 20 or 25 years ago, I was part of a delegation from Catholic Relief Services that went to Ethiopia when it had one of its famines. I can see as vividly today as then the shrunken faces of the kids and their bloated bellies, where they just didn't have nutrition or food. That's real poverty. So you and I, on a scale, are more like Dives than Lazarus in our wealth. But the question is, do we, not so much what we have, but how much do we care? The first step in caring is seeing. The first time the Dives really saw Lazarus was after he had died. Don't let it be like that for you or for me. Who is it that we are near each day and fail to see? Who is in need of our time, our concern, our care, our love, our support? He or she is there. We only have to open our eyes and see.